And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, July 13th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. We have a 9-game main slate tonight to break down. Should be a rousing good time. So you guys should hit that like button right out of the gate, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did your Tuesday shake out?
Normal. Didn't have anything good. Won my head-to-head, got my Fish 1K player back, so that was nice.
Nice.
Won that, didn't. There was a $195 qualifier on DraftKings, so I burned $2,000 in that. But yeah, no, normal day.
The qualifiers are such a fun and awful chase.
Yeah, I had stopped. I haven't been chasing them as much recently, but I still fall into that 10 max $195 one.
Especially after, like, you had a good day, what, like 3 or 4 days ago or something like that?
I had back-to-back good Saturdays.
Yeah, that's like when you're coming off of a decent day, you're like, okay, I'm going to invest a portion of that into chasing qualifiers. It's just like the natural thing to do.
Even though chasing qualifiers is a big reason why I was in a big downswing prior to those good days.
Well, yeah, that's just how this happens. It's just, you can't help it. They're so appealing. It's a fun thing to go do. There's legitimate heavy duty money at the end of that line if you qualify. You won't have a better contest to get in if you qualify, that's for sure. So
it's for sure the easiest path to making legitimate, like, life-changing money in DFS.
Yeah, agreed. But it's also the easiest path to not have money in your DraftKings account.
Yeah, it is also
you really want that to happen.
It is the easiest path to losing the current DFS income that I actually have also.
Yeah, there are I don't even want to go and look at what my lifetime negative is for qualifiers, because obviously, like, different volume for you and I, but I have burned quite a bit to no esteem whatsoever. Full bagel across the board.
I've gone to them, but I've never done well in any of them. Like, I've done okay, but I don't have any 6-figure qualifier wins, so I assume I'm down.
I would imagine. Congrats to Willie K in chat. Got approved for his medical marijuana card.
Nice.
I hope that you let them know that you get anxiety when you don't have marijuana. That's probably the easiest way to go ahead and get it. 9 games. Slate looks all right. How much did the rain out last night affect you?
It didn't. I had very, very little Washington or Seattle because I just I didn't remove them, but I deducted from their projection, so I ended up just not really getting to it.
I should have known better because it was Washington, and when it comes to weather, they just make up the rules as they go along. However, I did have the Mariners as my 4th most exposed team once I took pitchers out. Still managed to be profitable yesterday. Don't know how that really happened, but I'm very happy that it did. Now I'm ready to move on to the next slate, if you are.
Yeah, still... Oh, I know I did. Okay, yeah, I'm good.
All righty. Yankees and Reds. 5.6 run implied total for New York. 3.2 for the Reds. It's Luis Severino and Mike Minor. Minor unowned at 6,400 on DraftKings. Severino 9,200. That's the 6th most expensive pitcher, also tied for 6th. He is 30% owned. Basically, we have 4 pitchers today that are 30-ish% owned. One at the midway point there at 15%, and then everybody else is basically the same. How do you see Severino today? I think 30% seems pretty reasonable, and this matchup against the Reds is not exactly bad.
Yeah, I think it seems very reasonable as well. Overall, Severino's been good this year. $9,200 price tag's reasonable. You have a pretty balanced projected lineup for the Reds, but 6 right-handed hitters overall, 4 in the top 6. That's pretty nice for Severino. I mentioned on a previous show that he has pretty drastic strikeout splits this year. They do probably converge as the year goes on, just based on what we've seen from him in the past, but a 34.5% strikeout percentage against righties this year while allowing virtually no power compared to 18.9% against lefties with a 194 expected ISO certainly makes me feel a little bit better when most of the dangerous hitters in Cincinnati's lineup, if you want to even call them that, are right-handed.
Yeah, It's hard not to want to go here. There are 4 teams on the slate or 3 teams on the slate, sub 3.5 run implied totals. The Reds are one of them. Severino is actually good. This just seems like very obvious, and a very obvious spot where ownership is going to go. Like there's no real, it's hard for me to see a reason where anybody would be like, I don't want to go to Severino today.
I'm sure Sean V will let you know in a second.
I hope he's not around. Mike Minor.
That's a pretty tough sell for me against the Yankees. Like he's an okay middle of the road pitcher. 18.8% strikeout percentage this year. That is similar to what you get from him in previous years. But obviously tons and tons of right-handed power here for the Yankees. Limited sample for Minor this year, 308 expected ISO to righties. If you go back to last year, a 223 expected ISO to righties. Pretty difficult for me to want to get there.
Yankees bats, second most aggregate exposure. They are the second biggest score in our top stack tool. They're second for me as well. And that's because there's a lot of righty power here on the opposite side of Mike Minor, and their implied total is 5.6 runs. So we get Aaron Judge close to 30% ownership. He is very clearly going to be either in a cash lineup or in cash consideration. Stanton, Josh Donaldson at 4,400, Torres now at 4,800. I don't have much else to add here. I think the Yankees look fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a core slate. So even though the Yankees are getting ownership, they probably won't get as much as San Diego, which is nice as well. But yeah, certainly a spot that I want to get to them, even if it's not in full stacks, just grabbing them as, mini stacks or one-offs and adding a lot of upside to your lineup that way.
Yeah, I'm guessing, would you say Judge at 30% ownership, 6,300, certainly on the short list of cash game options today?
I would think so, yeah.
I would expect him to just be in, but we'll see where we end up. Any value for you on the Reds side of this one?
I don't really think so. It's still a 9-game slate. It's a really good pitcher in Severino. I don't really see anything that I really want to target there.
17th in ownership today for the Reds. They were 17th in my top stack tool, 15th in our top stack tool. So not highly ranked. Going to be very difficult to go to the Reds. I just like loading up on the Yanks here. I got nothing else.
No, I mean,
and I'm guessing like other than Judge and Stanton being in the 20s, I mean, the next highest guy on the Yankees is Donaldson at 12. Like you're not even getting into crazy ownership here. And you don't mind having Judge and Stanton. Those guys can be worth their while with one swing of the bat.
Yeah, exactly. That's the nice thing too. Like you're not getting the massive ownership across the board for the Yankees that you are for most likely the Padres.
Anything else, Yankees and Reds?
Nope.
All righty. We'll go to Blue Jays and Phillies. 3.9 run implied total for the Jays, 4 for the Phillies. Ross Stripling and Zach Wheeler going in this one. Stripling not really pulling any ownership, 2%, 6,500 on DK. Wheeler, 9,700 today, 9% owned. So he's the second most expensive pitcher behind Shane McClanahan. I assumed he was going to pop up a little bit more, and then I thought about it and was just like, oh, well, he is facing the Blue Jays. Not a great strikeout matchup, at least based on the lineup that I have in right now. I think Wheeler's like properly owned at 10%.
Yeah, not a great strikeout matchup, but then on top of that too, you also have John Gray in the mid-range facing Oakland. You have McClanahan against the Red Sox, tough matchup, but still a really good pitcher. Ohtani in a tough matchup, but at a cheaper price point than Wheeler. So, and then you have the crazy Giolito price tag as well. So it makes sense to me why he's not getting more ownership. I do think he is somebody you can look to in tournaments to get away from some of that ownership. Like, for example, I think Ohtani makes more sense at $600 less, but is he really 3.5 times as likely as Zach Wheeler to, or is he 3.5 times more likely than Zach Wheeler to score more points? Probably not. So I think, you can use Wheeler as a pivot there, but I think it makes sense that the ownership's going to these other guys first.
Okay, we're on the same page there. Can you justify anything for Stripling here on the opposite side of the Phillies?
I don't really think so. I just don't think it's going to be a slate where you really need to get there. He has been throwing more pitches recently, but it's still not like it's a great matchup against the Phillies. He's a solid enough pitcher, but nothing that, you're going to go crazy over. 19.6% strikeout percentage, 3.5 xFIP. But, again, you're just going to have pricing's just been so easy, both pitching and hitting, that you haven't really needed to play questionable SP2s too often.
Let's talk bats, and it looks like we're going to go to the Phillies side of this one first, obviously, because Wheeler is on the hill. So 8th in ownership, 7th in top stack. That's where I have them. They're probably a little bit under-owned. I think it all just looks pretty reasonable for the Phillies. I think they probably should be somewhere in that like 7th to 8th best team today. I don't have anything really crazy to say about Philly. They look fine.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much that sums it up. It's a fine spot. Stripling's not great. He's not bad. 185 expected ISO to lefties since last year, 208 to righties since last year. He's been better this year, at least to lefties, 145 expected ISO, but 202 to righties. He's just kind of a middle of the road pitcher, and you do have power in the Philly lineup. So you're not looking at it and saying, like, oh, how do they not have success against Stripling? Because he's better than that. But, it's still Schwarber, Hoskins, Castellanos, Hall, 1 through 4, we're assuming, and all of those guys have power. Obviously, one thing holding them back on DraftKings is that you still can't play Hoskins and Hall together.
Yeah, that's so irritating.
And they're missing JT Realmuto.
Blue Jay side is pulling no ownership, 15th in aggregate ownership of the 18 teams that we have. They are 11th in top stack. Not necessarily as high as I was hoping they could get to, and they were 13 for me, but no ownership coming in on a team with, arguably arguably the best offense on the day. Probably not for sure, but like they're in the top 3. But they've got a terrible matchup against Zach Wheeler. Is this a spot where you try to get to the Blue Jays? Or is it negative because Zach Wheeler's not getting enough ownership?
Yeah, I mean, if Wheeler were getting more ownership, it would be more appealing. But as it is, it's kind of just one of those spots where if I get to the Blue Jays, that's fine, just because they're the Blue Jays and they're not getting ownership. But there's most likely just going to be spots that I attack before I get to the Blue Jays here.
Yeah, I wish, other than Kirk as a one-off catcher who's not pulling any ownership, where I'll pretty much take anybody as a one-off to get him at 4,800 at low ownership. Like, I like that idea in a larger field GPP. If I were building like a single entry lineup that didn't have a catcher, I'd like the idea of going to Kirk as a very easy spot to be different. I can't really justify the Jays against Wheeler other than just a pure contrarian play.
Agreed.
I don't have anything else here. There are no cash options in this game at all, right? No, we're not going to Wheeler. We're not going to Phillies. We're not going to Blue Jays.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything cash-wise.
Okay. Well, that's easy enough. Then now we could talk about the schedule for the rest of the day. MLB Deeper Dive back at 5 p.m. That'll be Adam once again. Live Before Lock coming right after that at 6 o'clock. You don't even have to leave the stream. 2 straight hours of coverage. And then we get the big one tonight. PGA Live Before Lock, 8 p.m. We've got the Open Championship kicking off tomorrow. The British Open, if you want to call it what it should actually be called so that people could remember the title a little bit easier. But can't wait. One of my favorite golf event, probably my favorite golf event of the year, even more so than the Masters. There's just something about the Open style that is somehow more appealing to me. I don't know. I feel like I really got into it once Tiger was doing it back in like the early 2000s. Not that anybody cares. Watch PGA Live Before Lock tonight. Free content. We're talking MLB ownership on this show. That will be important. It is free. So go to stokastic.com to browse that. If you're playing PGA, though, PGA ownership also free. So dip your toe into the MLB and PGA ownership well for the next day. All right, Adam, I'm going to try to unzoom my sheet to 400% because for some reason, I just zoomed in like I was blind. Didn't mean to do that, but it happened. Let's go Rays and Red Sox. Interesting game here. 4-run implied total for the Rays. 3-run implied total for the Red Sox. Shane McClanahan going for Tampa. Josh Winkowski going for Boston. Wink's getting a little bit of love. He's at like 6% ownership at 6,500. He's 8,900 on FanDuel today. Don't play him at that price. Do you want to get to Wink at all at 6,500?
Not really. I mean, if he's necessary in a lineup here or there, that's fine. There are strikeouts in Tampa Bay's lineup. It's in a good park. I don't think he's much different than Ross Stripling. Stripling is getting less ownership, but neither one's popular. So either one of those guys are kind of the same to me, where if I land on them here and there, that's fine. They're probably the best 2 options in the 6K price range. I would rather get to them than Minor against the Yankees. I'd probably rather get to them than Blackburn against Texas, but it's probably also just not really going to be that necessary.
Now let's talk Shane McClanahan. 10K on DK, 11.5 on FanDuel. He's 11% owned there, 39% owned on DraftKings as the most expensive pitcher. I think he's the best pitcher on today's slate, so I don't really have much of an issue with the salary, with the ownership, other than the fact that he's facing the Red Sox, which isn't fun. I'm happy to go to McClanahan. the Red Sox have the lowest implied total on the slate today, so it doesn't seem like the betting market cares that it's the Red Sox.
I mean, McClanahan's just been unbelievably good this year. 36% strikeout percentage, along with a 4.8% walk percentage. Both just unbelievably good numbers. 1.98 xFIP. He's allowed 1 home run per 9. That's like the only thing that you could point to and say like isn't great. But also pitching in Tropicana Field here, I like McClanahan a lot. I know the matchup against Boston isn't great, but this is a really, really good pitcher. And also the bottom of this order, the top certainly has some guys that can hit, but it's not like the bottom of this order is difficult outs, by Major League standards. So it's not a great lineup top to bottom. You kind of just have some really good hitters in the middle.
284 FIP from Steamer. Crazy, dude. That's you don't see sub 3 ever. And there it is. So love getting to McClanahan. Probably a cash pitcher, but kind of up in the air right now. You've got Severino, you've got Ohtani, you've got John Gray as the pay down option, but feels like McClanahan gets in there.
Yeah, definitely in the mix. I mean, if you look at our projections, I would say McClanahan for sure. We have him 3 points higher than Ohtani, who's the next closest guy. So I would think that you're probably going to prioritize getting there. But yeah, like if I ended up with not getting to a 10K pitcher and getting, $9,100 Ohtani, $9,200 Severino, that wouldn't be crazy. But McClanahan probably is where you get to if you have your way.
Yeah. And we'll see it. I think there are 4 names that you could sort of rotate around, and any sort of combination is viable. All right, let's talk bats. 9th in ownership for the Rays, dead last for Boston. Is there anything for you on the Tampa side against Winkowski, 10th in our top stack tool?
Not a ton. I mean, it's still not a good park to hit in. Winkowski's been okay. He has a lot of 196 expected ISO to lefties this year compared to 159 to righties. So if you wanted to try and find some left-handed power on Tampa, that would make some sense, but I don't really know where you find it. Ji-Man Choi at 3,500 looks okay. Aranda, if he's hitting 4th at 2K flat, looks okay. Josh Lowe looks like a good value, but really just a pretty weak lineup here that I think is going to be difficult to get to in this park.
There's no other way for me to say this other than to just say it. I got a message from my wife that said, Derby emergency, leaving for the barn. Derby is the name of our horse.
Oh.
And she sent me a picture. I'm going to send it to you right now. It's, I don't know what I'm looking at, but I don't like looking at it.
I don't really want to see your dead horse, Josh.
It's not dead yet. I think I thought it was its crotch at first. I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking at.
Okay, I kind of starting to feel like I would prefer seeing a dead horse now.
Okay, I just sent you the picture in Slack right now, but I don't know what's going on there. So the wife's going to take care of, I don't know if she's got to like do something. Do you lance it?
I don't know what I'm looking at except for your horse's balls.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought it was balls too. That's not balls.
What the hell?
I don't know. Some sort of pus, liquid-filled bulge. I don't know, man.
It looks like the balls from the dog on Van Wilder.
It kind of does. It kind of does. So we'll find out what that ends up being. Sorry, that picture popped up as you were talking about Rays bets. So I wasn't ready to continue on at all. I needed to reset my brain. Same coffee as yesterday?
No. Got a iced latte today. Fresh coffee.
Okay. I saw it's very milky.
Yeah.
Yesterday was like straight.
Yeah, yesterday
flash.
was just straight cold brew.
Okay. Interesting. You don't see a lot of people bouncing between those two extremes.
Yeah, I like them both. Normally I go cold brew, but kind of just wanted a change. The big thing is I try and force myself to go out and get coffee in the morning because otherwise I just don't leave my apartment.
I could relate. I did not leave this morning and made coffee.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out and get coffee. The wife went to the grocery store, got Starbucks, didn't bring me one.
Yeah, I saw somebody I'm friends with posted a thread the other day on Twitter about a few positive changes they'd made in their lives, and one was that they're making coffee at home more, and I was like, oh, I'm actively trying to do that less and go out more.
Breed your poor horse, Engleman. Poor stud gonna combust. Not that kind of horse.
I can't even see chat today. I don't know why.
Did you open it?
I did.
It's the problem that you don't have the YouTube video open?
I just had to refresh.
Okay, weird. I can't imagine you're interested in Red Sox bats here.
No, I have way too much respect for McClanahan.
Guardians and White Sox, 4.3 run implied total for Cleveland, 4.4 for Chicago. Aaron Savale and Lucas Giolito. Savale, 5,400, 8% owned. Giolito, 7,900, 6% owned. I don't know why he's not more owned. I don't know why he's 7,900, but I don't think it's outlandish right now. I didn't get too much more of him. John Gray's causing a bit of a problem in this spot, right. But I mean, Giolito's just not priced correctly.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of just a weird one where Giolito's not priced correctly, but then you also have John Gray at that price point in a much better matchup. And you also still just don't have that big of a gap between Giolito and those guys at the top. But the one thing the case that I'll make for Giolito here is, obviously the matchup against Cleveland isn't very appealing, but Ohtani's matchup isn't very appealing. McClanahan's is mediocre. You're getting that discount to Giolito, who does have a 27.5% strikeout percentage. The only pitchers on this slate that he has a lower strikeout percentage than are McClanahan, Ohtani, Javier, and Severino. He's fifth. 3.62 xFIP, good pitcher. I think he should be pulling more ownership here, probably at the expense of just that entire top range.
Yeah, he came out of my sim double, where a little bit more than double where he's at, and I'm pretty happy there. I do have him behind Gray. I think Gray is owned too much too. I'd be happy to just take 10% from Gray and then go to Giolito and have both of them and call it a day. But they both look really good. It's just the real problem for this slate is the same problem we've had for the past 2 days. The Padres are free. They're the best stack on the slate by a mile. And you just don't need as much $7,900 Giolito when you already have the best possible team at the best possible price.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's I get why the ownership's as low as it is, but at the same time, I just kind of think that you probably should just be a little bit higher at the expense of, any of McClanahan, Ohtani, Gray, Severino being 30+% owned. You're still talking about a pitcher with very, very similar stuff, at least to most of them, not to McClanahan, not really to Ohtani, but pretty similar to these other guys, and just not getting the ownership at all. It's kind of Zach Wheeler-esque. These are both really, really good pitchers, and they're not getting ownership, and I get why, but it also does open the opportunity to just get a low-owned, really good pitcher.
Evidently, the horse fell, and that started growing.
No, that doesn't seem great.
No, it doesn't. I don't know dick about horses other than the fact that I have one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about them, but it's not supposed to look like that.
Nope, not at all. Not in that spot, at least. If, back near the butthole where the balls go is way more reasonable. Yeah, this Giolito one is so bizarre. I'm ready for Colorado to go away, so things could look a little bit more normal. Any interest in Savale at 5,400? Is he the best pay down option?
I mean,
best is relative.
Yeah, the price tag's really cheap. He's clearly underpriced. I still think I'd probably rather take chances on Winkowski, but 5,400 is cheaper than Savale should be, even though he's not a particularly good pitcher. I mean, 21.7% strikeout percentage, 4.09 xFIP, 1.36 home runs per 9. He's okay. He shouldn't be 5,400. He should probably be 6,500.
All right, let's look at bats. The Guardians are 5th in aggregate ownership today. On the opposite side of this Giolito lack of ownership, they are 12th in our top stack tool. Now, I actually have them 5th. So I'm really curious about this. Clearly, Jose Ramirez is on a different level, but do you want to get to Cleveland in this one?
Not particularly, but the one thing that does stand out is Giolito is seemingly due for some negative regression in terms of power. 106 actual ISO to lefties this year, 177 expected. 292 actual ISO to righties, 249 expected, so the opposite direction there, but still, a pretty high expected ISO number to righties. So that is kind of interesting to me. Ramirez obviously really, really good. Reyes has power. Rosario's got upside. Naylor's got upside. Nolan Jones is still 2K flat, and now he's an outfielder instead of a third baseman, so that's a plus. You don't have to play him instead of Jose Ramirez. I don't really want to get to them, but I also didn't really want to get to them yesterday, and I still did against Cease, and I don't think Giolito is quite as good as Cease.
I don't know why I'm as interested as I am in the Guardians. They're just sort of, to me, though, properly owned. So I don't have too much else to add here. Nolan Jones, obviously, at the flat 2K at 3% ownership stands out for me. How do you feel about the White Sox side? So the White Sox are basically the inverse. They're not getting the ownership, but they are higher ranked in the top stack tool. I have the White Sox sort of where I'm more in line with the public ownership than our top stack tool. This game's just a real mystery to me.
I like the White Sox more than Cleveland. I mean, they're facing
Okay.
Savali instead of Giolito. They're not getting much ownership. 204 expected ISO to righties from Savali this year, 212 to lefties. The White Sox, and we've kind of talked about it, their offense has certainly been underwhelming. I don't typically care or buy into, clubhouse issues too much, but kind of just seems like a team that does not give a shit about playing baseball right now. And I'll attribute all of that to Tony La Russa. But
I was going to say, maybe it's because Tony La Russa is a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% blame him for everything going on here. But regardless, you have a lot of talent here with the Anderson, Moncada, Robert, Abreu, Sheets, Jimenez. These guys all have power against a very mediocre Savali. So at low ownership, I will once again go back to them and once again watch them suck and not care about baseball. They did score like 8 runs yesterday or something.
Where do I actually have these teams? 4.7 for the White Sox, 5. Okay, so like in a ranking, like straight down the line, I've got a really big gap here. The difference for me between Cleveland and the White Sox is 0.6% in top stack. Like I've got the Cubs at 3, and then I have the Rays at 10th. No, sorry, at 12th. But that's separated by less than 2%. 1.9 separates 3 through 12 for me. So I don't have the same sort of separation as I do in rank as I do in just simply data. I think I'm just going to have a little bit of both sides of this. That's another spot where like I wish that Giolito was getting more ownership. I'd feel a little bit better about going to Cleveland. For now, I think I'm going to have a little bit of all of this. I'm going to have some Cleveland. I'm going to have some White Sox. I'm certainly going to have some Giolito, and I wouldn't be surprised if I had a little bit of Savali.
Yeah, I think all of that's reasonable. I would think, I mean, ideally, I think that I'm getting more Giolito and more White Sox bats, but
okay.
It's not like it would be surprising if it kind of doesn't go that way.
All right. Anything else here?
Nope.
Oh, God, Tony La Russa. What an asshole.
You saw the intentional walk yesterday, right?
Sure didn't. You think that I see intentional walk highlights somewhere?
It was all over Twitter.
I wouldn't see an unassisted triple play followed up by like a back-to-back walk-off grand slam, man.
In the first game yesterday, they threw pitch number 1 to Jose Ramirez. He fouled it off, so the count's 0-1, and then La Russa intentionally walks him for reasons unknown. And I don't know if you'll remember, but like a month or so ago, he had a 1-2 count on Trey Turner and intentionally walked Trey Turner. And when asked about it after the game, said Turner's a good 2-strike hitter.
You should fire him on the spot there.
Oh yeah.
Like that's negligence. Like he is outwardly giving you full justification to remove him from his job.
Yeah. And the Turner one was even better because they intentionally walked him on 1-2 to bring up Max Muncy. Max Muncy hits a 3-run home run in that at bat, crosses home plate and starts yelling into the White Sox dugout for intentionally walking Turner.
I don't understand how something like that could happen. Like if who owns the White Sox? Oh, that's Reinsdorf, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. So no wonder he likes Tony La Russa.
Yep.
I wouldn't even let him finish. Like he would be packing his shit.
Right.
The moment I would call the moment he did it. I would call down and be like, get the fuck out of the dugout.
Just call one of the reporters, be like, hey, let Tony know he's fired.
Yeah. For real. That is as big of a mismanagement as you like. That's a manager can't negatively affect the game much worse than that. That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, it's up there with Madden intentionally walking Corey Seager with the bases loaded earlier. And Madden no longer has a job.
I still remember when that was like an actual conversation for Bonds.
I mean, Showalter did it with Bonds, and it actually sort of made sense. But
when the guy that's batting is hitting 400 with an 800 on base percentage and slugging 1200, you operate slightly different than Trey Turner.
Yeah,
and that says nothing about Trey Turner. Yeah, or Corey Seager in this case. Yeah, like no matter how good they are, they're not sniffing that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even do it with Trout. It was just prime Bonds is like the only.
Yeah, especially for prime Bonds at a time where like pitching was heavy too. He was doing it in a different era too.
Prime Bonds when pitchers were throwing 90 miles an hour. If Mike Trout was facing 90 mile an hour pitching everywhere, you would probably walk him too.
Right. Oh man, you know what else is as good as Barry Bonds?
Whatever promo you're about to read.
Prize Picks, the presenting sponsor of this show. I thought you were going to give me Odd Shopper on that one. I was like, that was yesterday, man. If you use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, you can get a $100 match deposit bonus. So if you put in 50, they match with 50. You put in 100, they match with 100. If you put in 200, you still only get 100. It's a great deal. We've got the free Prize Picks player prop tool at stokastic.com that I think will help you out a ton. You can mix up sports when you make your parlay cards. So if you want to go to baseball or Call of Duty, soccer, tennis, CFL, KBO, all sorts of different options for you. You're building out a parlay card. If you get 5 right, you can net up to 10x your entry fee. I'm now going to hit Adam with just a couple potential hitter scores. Remember, this is DraftKings scoring. First guy that we're going to go to is going to be, let's get to a game that we've already talked about. Who would be fun to talk about here? I was hoping for like one of our guys to show up. All right, Jose Ramirez in the game we just talked about. 7 fantasy points.
Over.
You taking the over or the under?
Over.
Yeah, I got him at 8.5. So
we have him at 9.5.
Ooh, and we're gonna snap take some Jose Ramirez here. Go ahead and just jump in and grab that too, guys. We'll stay with this game. Lou Bob on the opposite side, 8.5.
Over, not as quickly as Ramirez, but over.
I got him at 8, so I might click either a stay away or I would lean towards the under.
We have him at 9.1.
Okay. Let's see. We'll do 1 or 2 more. Let's go back to that Tampa Boston game. Randy Arozarena, 6.5.
Over.
I got him at 7.2, so I would lean to the over. This next one, I have a feel. Ooh, okay. I'm right on the number. Xander Bogaerts, 5.5.
Over.
I got a 5.4, so I'm not touching that one. That's Prize Picks, everybody. Check it all out. Use the Prize Picks player prop tool at stokastic.com. All righty. Cardinals taking on the Dodgers. 3.5 run implied total for St. Louis. 4.2 for the Dodgers. Adam Wainwright and Tony Gonsolin. Neither one of these guys pulling any ownership. I think getting a little bit of Gonsolin would be reasonable, but this 9K range is just loaded. So I understand why he's not getting ownership.
Yeah, and I think it's also, Gonsolin's good, but he's not the same level DFS pitcher as these other 9K guys in terms of talent. 24% strikeout percentage for him. You compare that to, Morton or Giolito at 27%, Severino at 28%, Javier at 33%, Ohtani at 34%, McClanahan at 36%, even John Gray's at 26.5%. So it's just not the same level DFS pitcher. 3.82 xFIP is very good. It's also more than 2 runs higher than his ERA, which suggests he's probably getting a bit lucky. 183 BABIP. He's a good pitcher, but I don't think he's on the same level as these other guys in that price range. And it's not it's a good matchup either.
Right. Like if other pitchers were on the slate just like sifted about, you'd be like, okay, yeah, you like 10% Tony Gonsolin is totally fine. But just in his price range, he's worse than Wheeler, Musgrove, Javier, Severino, Justin Steele, potentially, if you want to go that direction. There's just too many other dudes that look exactly like him that are better off. So you end up losing out on Gonsolin through no fault of his own. I don't have any interest in Wainwright against the Dodgers.
I do not either.
That one's a tough sell for me. God, Tony Lewis is 77.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But he played for the Kansas City A's in 1963.
He's more equipped to be president of the United States than a major league manager.
I don't know. It's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah, except baseball's more important.
That's true. We continue to pick people that shouldn't be managing the country the same way that Jerry Reinsdorf is picking people that shouldn't manage his baseball club. But everybody involved, presidents and him, none of those people should have their current job. And I am not drawing the line at our current president either. We could run that one back for a while.
Oh, yeah, that was not a political statement. That was we've had a lot of really old dudes.
Yeah, both sides of the coin for me. The most 2 recent presidents shouldn't be presidents. So I just don't care. Let's talk Dodgers bats because I don't think we're talking Cardinals bats. 6th in aggregate ownership for LA, third in our top stack tool. I am not as high on the Dodgers, but I still like them quite a bit, particularly at just 5% aggregate ownership. And it's the Dodgers, and it's Wainwright, who's a good pitcher, but maybe a little past having the stuff to get out of an all-star team.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I still think Wainwright is good, but the Dodgers aren't getting much ownership here, and I will take the upside that they offer. So far this year, Wainwright 172 expected ISO to lefties, 219 to righties. He's been decent overall. 19.5% strikeout percentage, 3.77 xFIP, but this is a really, really tough matchup.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised there's not more ownership going to the Dodgers, because outside of Betts and Turner, they're not really all that expensive. Is this just respect for Wainwright?
I think it's also Padres and Yankees.
That's fair. Who's the best Dodgers bat?
Freeman.
Yeah, I think so too. It's one of the few times I could ask that question, and I know that I'm not just getting like a snap answer of the best guy in the team, because there's like six versions of that.
I at least had to look at the pricing.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Freeman.
It could
Will
be
Smith too.
Second base, third base.
Yeah, I was gonna say Will Smith, $4,600. There's a lot.
Yeah. And before anybody comments that Muncy's having a bad year, expected WOBA against righties is still 50 points higher than his actual. Expected ISO is still 100 points higher than his actual.
Cardinals bats?
Pretty tough sell for me, I think, against Gonsolin. It's kind of in that Blue Jays territory, I guess, where they're the Cardinals. They have power. They're a good offense, but I also have a lot of respect for the pitcher they're facing.
Earl says Biden definitely, but he made a ton of money under Trump. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean you should be the president.
No.
I don't, that's a completely different kind of discussion point. If we want to just talk about like making money, for sure. But
yeah, I mean, money printer was pretty active.
Yeah, I think we can think of some other things that might not have qualified him for the job that he had. Just a few. I like the money too. All righty. Nothing else here for Cardinals and Dodgers. So let's go Cubs and Orioles. 4.3 run implied total for the Cubs. 3.9 for your Orioles, who I somehow are going to find out are your top stack today. Justin Steele going for Chicago. Spencer Watkins going for Baltimore. Neither guy really pulling any ownership. Again, I would like to say that I have interest in Justin Steele. Do I think his ownership at 3.5% is incorrect? Yeah, a little bit. Does it matter today because 5 other guys are better than him? No, not really.
Yeah, he's an okay pitcher, but he's also 9,200, which makes it really difficult for me to want to get to him. 22.7% strikeout percentage, 10.7% walk percentage. Those numbers just aren't on the same tier as the guys that he's priced around. 3.72 xFIP is fine. The matchup is okay. Obviously, I'm higher on the Orioles than you every day, but I think Steele's fine. It's just he shouldn't be $9,200. I was expecting to look at him be like 7,500 and me be like, yeah, that's fine, but you don't really need him. 9,200 is just like close to impossible, I think.
Right. I have him projected like Giolito. Like I would have needed Giolito's price for Steele to be what I want him to be, but like I think they're comparable today. I'm never going to get to Justin Steele at 9,200 if Giolito's already at 7,900 and I can't get there either.
We have Giolito by 1.5. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Just given, I mean, you're talking about like a 5 to 6% jump in strikeout percentage for Giolito.
Yeah, it's close. I don't have much of an issue either direction. I'm not getting to either guy with any sort of volume right now. So any Watkins for you, 5K?
No. He's somehow been kind of decent recently, but there's just nothing about him that makes me buy into that. 295 expected ISO to righties this year. 146 to lefties is better, but doesn't strike out guys from either side of the plate. So I'm good there.
Yeah, 537 expected FIP via Steamer is real bad. So let's talk ownership, because we have the Cubs with the third most aggregate ownership today, 8.3%. They have a relatively low implied total here. They're 7th in our top stack. Why are they as owned as they are? Just Watkins?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because Watkins is not good, but you do have a solid Baltimore bullpen behind him, which is not something that I want to like harp on too much. I think sometimes it gets overstated, but if Watkins can just get through like 4 or 5 innings, you're kind of going to run into a lot of good arms if you're the Cubs. The pricing is decent, but you still have a really expensive Contreras at 5,900. I think Ortega leading off is a good value. Happ, Suzuki, Wisdom, Horner, those guys all look fine. So I don't know. I mean, I like the Cubs. I don't really think they should be getting more ownership necessarily than like the Dodgers.
Right. Yeah, like I'm not surprised that they're getting a little bit of love. It's a really nice spot, but I don't know. Like to
It
get to
surprises me that they're twice as
third,
popular as the Dodgers, that they're 4 times as popular or 3 times as popular as the White Sox. Like that's what surprises me.
yeah, like if we look at, because I think a key piece here is, yeah, like it's not even that they're just kind of third. Like they're 5 ownership points behind the Yankees in second, but they're a full 2% ahead of the Rockies, 2% ahead of the Guardians. Like this is not a situation where they're third, but they could just as easily be seventh or eighth. And
Yeah.
it's just like a quirk of sorting.
One thing, like I don't want to overstate the ownership too much here. Like the highest owned guy on the team is Ortega at 14%, Happ
Sure.
at 13, Contreras and Suzuki at 10. So I mean, none of those guys. You're not looking at any of those guys saying like, oh man, like I can't get to that ownership. So it's kind of being nitpicky here, like that they're being a little bit overowned. But it's more so just I'm surprised that the ownership isn't a little flatter between those teams.
I agree. All right, floor is yours. Tell me why the 11th in ownership Orioles are the best stack today.
Because they're on a 9-game winning streak. They are never going to lose again. They're going to make the playoffs, win the World Series, and why wouldn't you want to roster that team at no ownership? But realistically, I mean, I think they are just kind of a middle of the road spot here. I think Steele is pretty good. He's held righties this year to a 111 expected ISO. That's obviously very good. Lefties sub 100 with a 32% strikeout percentage. It's a tough spot for Baltimore. 3.7 implied run total. They're cheap. They have power. That's kind of the only case I can make.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't have anything else to ask here. Go Cubs. Rangers and A's. 4.4 run implied total for the Rangers, 3.2 for the A's. John Gray and Paul Blackburn go in here. Blackburn, unowned. The guy that we need to talk about here is Gray. 7,700 against Oakland. It's probably the worst offense on the slate. And he is 36% owned. I can't disagree with it. I don't know why he's priced like this against Oakland.
No, me neither. I think that he is clearly the best mid-range option. I do think, and we kind of mentioned it, he shouldn't be 7 times as popular as Lucas Giolito. Giolito is still a really good pitcher. The matchup, obviously, against Cleveland for Giolito is worse than it is for Gray against Oakland, but that doesn't account for that sort of gap in ownership. But John Gray's good. He's got a 26.5% strikeout percentage this year. This is someone that we expected to be good once he got out of Coors Field, consistently good. And he has been. 3.37 xFIPs, excellent. Really good matchup. So, I mean, I really, really like John Gray here. I plan to get to him quite a bit. It's just a matter of, where you do have more popular bats, Giolito makes for a very easy pivot.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's clear. It's very clear why John Gray is getting that ownership. It's sort of a problem for Giolito and not Gray. Like, I don't think that John Gray is the issue. It's the fact that everything else is happening. Because getting John Gray against the A's feels fantastic. We're not going to ask about Paul Blackburn, so let's talk Rangers bats, I guess. 7th in aggregate ownership, 9th in top stack, same spot that I have them. I see them as properly owned. I wish this could have been like old Texas, where this would have been like a huge hitter's park and they could have looked a little bit better against Blackburn. But for now, I just think they're kind of on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, as not good for fantasy purposes as Blackburn is, he does a pretty good job limiting power. 159 expected ISO to lefties, 137 to righties. The Rangers do have power in their lineup, but to me, it just kind of grades out as like a neutral spot here. I'm with you. 4% projected ownership, 4% chance of being the top stack, 4% chance of being the top value stack. They kind of are just a team where I'll maybe get to some, but I'm not going out of my way to get to them just because Blackburn does typically do a pretty good job keeping the ball on the ground. And amongst low-owned teams, you still have the Dodgers, the White Sox, teams I think look a little bit better.
Let's see. A's bats are weirdly hot right now. Sean V. Yeah, A's really pesky as of late. How close is of late? Because they've got an 84 WRC plus in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, but they've been annoying while being bad.
Oh, I get it. Clearly, I don't get it. Let's see. Last week,
Is
Where are
Blackburn
they?
an All-Star? That would be wild.
25th in WRC plus over the last week, 73rd or 73 WRC plus. Why are they pesky? Why are they hot? Because they're not. None of those statements are true.
Blackburn is the A's All-Star representative.
Really?
That speaks to how bad this offense is.
Yeah. Oh, you mean this 1 day heater that they may or may not be on didn't shoot somebody into the All-Star game?
Wow. I mean, he has a 3.67 xFIP. There's that.
Is he like their leader in anything?
Probably xFIP. Like probably every pitching related stat.
Yeah. I mean, in Texas, yes, they are hot. What? Oh, they scored 8 runs in the last inning of extras yesterday. So now they're on fire. Oh, 3 games they've been hitting. Just for the record, that still doesn't make them be better than the 25th ranked offense over the past week. So how bad were the first couple of games in the week if that didn't offset anything? Let's see. Sean Murphy's got 2.2 WAR. Frankie Montas has 1.9. Why isn't it Montas over Blackburn?
He's hurt.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason. It should be the reason.
Yeah, because better across the board.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Sean V not understanding salaries, so that's interesting. Do you want to talk about the A's bats? 12th in ownership. They are a good value. They apparently have been hot since yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think you need the value on this particular slate. The matchup against Gray sucks. The lineup's even more difficult to make a case for now that they don't have Bethancourt in there. You're basically looking at Laureano, Murphy, Brown, and just praying that somebody else figures out how to hit. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any sort of a case to make for Oakland.
All righty. I got a promo code for you guys. This one's going to be a little bit off the beaten path because we're not talking about a full-on subscription to Stokastic. We're talking a little best ball here. Underdog has their Puppy 2 best ball contest for this season, and you should want to get a spot before it's completely filled. Adam, how is best ball going for you so far? How locked and loaded are you at Underdog or DK or wherever?
I'm around 50 drafted on both sites, so I need to start on a third site and then on a different tournament on DraftKings and then go back to Underdog probably.
There we go. Well, Adam already has access to this stuff, but if you don't have it and you're trying to get into best ball, here's your opportunity. If you use the promo code PUPPY, PUPPY, one word, you can get $1 for your weekly access to our best ball kit. This is good through Sunday, the 15th. So you don't have a long time to do this. You've got 2 more days. It's $9 off the original price. You get it for $1. This covers our best ball and season-long fantasy football rankings, our Underdog daily draft rankings, our best ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, premium articles, and more. All you have to do is use this promo code at checkout. Click the link in the description of this video. Again, the code is PUPPY, PUPPY, $1 weekly best ball draft kit access. All righty, let's close it out. Going to course, Rockies and Pods, 4.8 run implied total for Colorado, 5.8 for San Diego. Okay, Chad Kuhl going for Colorado, Joe Musgrove going for San Diego. Just got a text from Katie now that says, he's okay, I'm back home. So she never even made it to the barn, if I had to guess.
She's got there, popped it real quick, and came back.
I guess. Put some Clearasil on it. I don't expect Chad Kuhl to have the same sort of experience he had a couple of weeks ago where he just spun a 9-inning gem. Musgrove, on the other hand, unowned, 9,600. For the third straight day, I'm going to ask the question, should we get to Joe Musgrove here?
Probably not. But it's still just sort of the same answer as with Clevenger and with Manaea, where he's going a little bit under-owned. Like, he should probably be higher than 1%, but I just don't know how I'm getting the Musgrove in cores at the same price range as McClanahan, Ohtani, Severino, Javier, Wheeler, and Gonsolin all ahead of him, in addition to Giolito being cheaper than him and Gray being cheaper than him. I just don't know how I'm doing that. Yeah.
Again, like, if I got shares of Musgrove, not going to freak out. Should be more than 1% owned. Just don't care because there's 7 other guys in the 9Ks that are better than him. We've had this conversation already. I'm obviously not asking you about Chad Kuhl. So first in everything today for the Padres, stop me if you've heard this story before. What are you doing today with San Diego? What's your expectation? How are you handling it? Because they're the best team today, and there is no argument for that.
Yeah, my expectation is that it resembles what I did in game one. Yesterday, I still got a decent amount of the Padres, but I was a lot lower than the field. Game one, I was pretty close to the field. It was just a matter of, mixing. If I'm playing a 5-man Padre stack, being different pretty much everywhere else in my lineup, mixing in a lot of guys individually, like Cronenworth one-offs and stuff like that. I expect to be back there today since it is a little bit shorter slate, and we also haven't had a ton of offenses that we love. So it's not like, there's 4 or 5 offenses that I'm saying like, man, these guys aren't getting ownership and it's solely because of the Padres. Most of the offenses we've talked about, it's been like, oh, okay, well, they're facing pretty decent pitchers. It's, a good offense, but not a great spot. So that makes me think too that I'm going to be more willing to get to the Padres than I was before, but you still need to balance that out with the rest of your lineup.
This feels like a day where you're getting 5 Padres in cash just because 30%, 30%, 30, 25, 30, like these guys are just loaded from an ownership perspective.
Unless you're the guy that took my 1K head to head and played 1 Padre yesterday.
Yeah. He also played
Cease.
Yeah,
Cease and Lyles.
Yeah. Whew. That's incredible.
Which, to his credit, he keeps playing these shitty guys and actually getting decent games. Not referring to Cease there, but referring to Lyles.
Yeah, I mean, Lyles just should not ever be in a there's like a big like $25 single entry double up or something like that, right? Like there is some sort of like big cash game contest. What is Lyles owned in that? Less than 1%, probably, right?
You would think, yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right, let's talk Rockies. 4th in top stack, 4th in ownership. I have them 4th as well. I'm not all that excited about getting Colorado here. Musgrove's good, or at least good enough. At the very least, whatever you want to say about Colorado negating that. And this Rockies lineup is awful.
Yeah, I mean, 100 WRC plus, like 185 ISO at home for the Rockies. The thing for me, though, is right now it just looks like the ownership is there. I understand Coors Field, and like I'm willing to take the Rockies at relatively low ownership when they're playing there, even in relatively difficult matchups. But today you have the Dodgers in not a great matchup, but Wainwright's not as good as Musgrove. Obviously, St. Louis isn't as favorable as Coors Field either, but Dodgers at lower ownership, White Sox against Savali at lower ownership. I think the Rockies look fine, but if the ownership holds how it is right now, I think I'd rather be getting to the Dodgers and the White Sox.
I'm with you. I just don't have that much interest in this Colorado team. Being in Colorado only makes them like slightly below average instead of truly abysmal. All right, let's close this one out. Angels and Astros. 3.9 run implied total for the Angels, 3.7 for the Stros. Shohei Ohtani and Christian Javier. We are about to have a disagreement if I had to guess. Ohtani, 36% owned at 9,100. He's 12% owned on FanDuel at 10.5. Javier is 16% owned on DraftKings at 9,300, 6% owned on FanDuel at 9,700. I'm a little bit lighter on Ohtani than the 36% we're seeing, and I'm a little bit heavier on Javier than the 16% we're seeing. How do you see these guys in relationship to each other? Because they're only separated by $200.
I agree with you. I kind of had said before that I just think that whole McClanahan, Ohtani, Gray, Severino tier might be a little bit overowned when you compared them to Wheeler, Giolito, to a lesser extent Gonsolin, but also Javier. He's getting half the ownership of Severino. He's getting about half the ownership of Ohtani. He's got a really good strikeout matchup against the Angels. Granted, the Angels did move Stefanik to the leadoff spot last game. He's tough to strike out. You obviously have Trout, Ohtani, Ward that are just good hitters, but the rest of this lineup still not good and easy to strike out. Yeah. Javier's got the 3rd highest strikeout percentage on the slate behind McClanahan and Ohtani at about 33%, 3.8 xFIP. I don't think he should be getting half the ownership of these guys.
I'm surprised he's getting less than half the ownership of just simply Ohtani in this game. Like, right. I would rather have Javier than Ohtani if I saw nothing on the screen. So it's a tricky spot, man. I would like to get to more Javier, and I think that I will. That said, like, clearly they both look good. Clearly Ohtani, to some degree, deserves that ownership. He like at 9,100 as the cheapest pay up option that you can get to today. I'm still happy to get to Ohtani, but I don't like targeting the Astros either.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely brutal matchup, both in terms of strikeouts and just a very good offense.
Yeah. So how do you think this shakes out for you? You end up a little bit lighter on those bigger guys? No, go ahead. You got it. Just fill me in.
Probably, and again, without crunching, but I would think I probably end up getting more Javier than the field, or than is currently projected, at the expense mainly of Ohtani, probably getting around the field on Severino, McClanahan, and then maybe getting like a little bit more Giolito, a little bit less Gray, something like that.
Okay. I don't think we're talking bats in this one, either side of this. Angels,
not
Astros.
unless you want to just run some Houston stacks out there and hope that they do Houston things.
Right. And obviously the Angels look so much less appealing because you can't have Ohtani the hitter.
Right, exactly.
All right. Favorite stacks for today?
Dodgers, White Sox. I mean, Padres, I guess.
Yeah. And then pitching, I guess, run it back one last time.
Yeah. McClanahan, Ohtani, Gray, Severino, Javier. But the way ownership looks right now, I think I get a little bit more Javier, probably at the expense of Ohtani.
Well, folks, that will do it. Another strategy show in the books. Hit that like button if you haven't. Get it up to 100 likes. We've got the deeper dive in Live Before Lock coming up later today. Adam will have his GPP videos coming out momentarily, sometime after the early slate lock. That much I can positively guarantee you. But that's it. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate having all of you. Shouts to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. Good luck, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.